It's a not so magnificent 7 for the Town as they dropped to another away defeat at Ewood Park on Saturday afternoon when Blackburn Rovers ran out all too comfortable 2-0 winners. Alongside me to look back on another depressing away day travel is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, Doctor Who was in the crowd yesterday, but it's the Town who wish they could go back in time.
You and me both. Let's get this done, shall we?
Indeed, so yep, we'll reflect on another disappointing afternoon and look at one or two things that are coming up right after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning, longest-running Luton Town podcast, having scooped bronze in the Best Football League podcast category in this year's Football Content Awards. This season, our show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I said before the intro, we are going to look back on Blackburn Rovers 2, Luton Town 0, and alongside me I've got Jimbo as always. I said it's a not so magnificent 7, Jimbo, but yeah, we could just play any of the last 6 away reviews really, and it ticks the boxes, and not much more to be said really. It's just another disheartening day at the office. Nothing there. 2 sloppy goals conceded. Little bit of fight in the second half, bit of manic idiocy, and then we all traipse home thinking, what the hell did we bother doing that for?
Yeah, it certainly feels like it's a bit Groundhog Day all the time on the road. You sort of had that positive from the weekend, and now and you understand anyone that watched that why we thought we'd celebrate that while we could, because you've got to take the joys where you can, but on an away day, it just feels like an inevitable. And yeah, I mean, listen, I think I predicted Luton to lose because Blackburn had won 5 on the bounce. The last 4 were 1-0, so not many were scoring against them, including Leeds and Middlesbrough. So it's not a surprise that it happened. But yeah, it's dispiriting, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone was surprised. I don't think any of the 705 hardy souls that went from Bedfordshire up to Lancashire yesterday were surprised that we lost. There's a disillusionment about it away from home now. But people are just sick and tired of watching them lose in the same fashion. And in many ways, with that regard, yesterday might have been the worst of the lot, because Blackburn aren't free scoring. They don't rip you open with pace down, all angles. They've clearly got pace in the areas that they work at. But, they'd scored 4 goals in 4 games before yesterday. We couldn't even keep them to 1. They didn't even have to work hard for the 2. If they had a finisher, they'd have had a lot more. These are all trends of all of the last 7 away games. The only positive, really, that you can find from the trend of the away games is that it was the first time a team scored 2 against us since Sheffield United. The rest of them go 3, 4s and 5s. But again, it was only 2 because poor finishing. And if your glass is half full, you would say we were the better team in the second half. The realistic view is they declared at half-time. They knew they had enough. They were hell-bent on saving their energy, end of a long week or whatever it was, and fully just taking their clean sheet, foot off the gas. And even then they had the best chance of the half when they weren't even bothered. It's just... It's hard to see away. It's hard to watch away from home right now because Luton fans are used to Luton losing, and hell, in 2024 we're even more used to it than what we normally would be. And we're fine with Luton losing if there is a perception from those of us in the stands that those on the pitch are giving absolutely everything they've got. That's why they were clapped off at every single Premier League ground last season, because they were outclassed, because they were out-qualitied, for the want of a better word, but they gave everything they had and they left it all on the pitch, and they just weren't good enough, and that's absolutely fine. But there isn't that perception right now. There is a perception right now that we roll over too easily, that we don't fight hard enough. And I'm not the only one saying this. Jordan Clark came out on Three Counties Radio yesterday and said similar lines, that we concede goals too easily, we've got to defend our box better. But we're hearing these messages all the time. You know, that he ended that interview, and I thought it was a really good interview from a guy who was probably our best player on the day, who came out to front up, like he quite often does, to be fair to him. He finished that interview with, "We've got to learn from this quickly." And that's the only issue I have with it. This is a 3-month thing now. Go all the way back to Plymouth. That was in September when we played Plymouth, towards the end of September. We're about to hit Christmas. When are we going to learn if it's taken us 3 months to learn? You know, we should have learnt it by now. There's so many same mistakes that are still happening, yet the same people are still being offered up the chance to make the same mistakes. And people are just... I mean, 705 was a good away attendance yesterday. Second Saturday before Christmas. Next to nothing to get behind away from home. Bloody long journey, paying stupid prices in this league. So the away attendances are still there. But people aren't getting any reward for it whatsoever, and at some point you've got to offer something up, you know? Two genuine shots on target in the 90 minutes, and they both came in the same move. Okay, the stats will tell you that there's 4 shots on target, but 2 of them the goalkeeper's caught, and you and I could catch them, to be quite honest with you. They're a good side, Blackburn. They're a solid, they're a well-organised side. But as I've mentioned on this podcast a few times, one of my best mates is a Blackburn fan. And I said to him before the game, "What's the secret of your success? Why are you doing so well?" And he said, "I don't know, because we're nothing special. We're just well organised. And when we get in front, we're able to keep a clean sheet." And I said, "You know what? That sounds like us 2 years ago. But it ain't us now."
That's that old phrase, isn't it? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't beat work hard. I'm not levelling that at Luton. I'm just saying that about the Blackburn situation.
I'm not either, and I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that these players aren't trying. I'm not suggesting there's no effort there, but they're not learning how not to defend their box. First goal yesterday. Throw in, guy cuts in, just a simple throw in, not even a long throw or anything out of the ordinary, just a simple throw in much the same way that the Middlesbrough 5th goal was just a simple throw in. Geezer cuts inside, goes past someone, 3 people, we've got 5 around him, but the shot goes between 3 people and not one person throws themselves in front of. Now, I don't know if that's an unwillingness or an inability to do it. I'm beginning to start thinking it's the latter, because it never happens. But the very least that football fans want to see their team do, especially when they've paid 70 quid before they've got in the stadium for a ticket and getting up there, is someone to throw themselves in front of a ball. It's not difficult. You look at the other end, on the few occasions we did get near the box, you couldn't get through them because people were throwing themselves in front of it, or they were crowding us out.
Is that a confidence issue? Because Blackburn are of 5 games unbeaten. They've beaten 2 of the best sides Luton have come up against, certainly away in Middlesbrough and Leeds, and they're in that confident mode. You mentioned that they scored a goal and then they sort of sat back after the 2, thinking they'd done it. Because they're so hard to beat currently at the moment, nobody's scoring against them, including those 2 teams. Do you think there's just a feeling? There's a feeling for Blackburn that when they do get that goal, they've won the game, or they can see it out, which Luton did a lot of times in the Championship promotion winning season. And then on the mirror of that, Luton have got this where if they concede, you pretty much feel like they're going to lose the game. No, I kind of felt, and I don't think I referenced this in the preview, so it does seem like a bit of Captain Hindsight, but I feel against a team like Blackburn Rovers in the form that they're in and the way they're winning their games, that the minute you concede first against them, it's over, because they are comfortable at doing that. And I think, like you're saying, they're nothing special. That's your friend's view. That's a Blackburn fan view. But maybe you don't have to be anything special if you're just really hard to beat, which seems to be what they are.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be anything special in this league, full stop. I watch games every week that are on television. Burnley this afternoon being a perfect case in point. Nothing special. Put in an absolute wonder strike, win the game 2-1. That is what it is. Obviously, I shouldn't really reference Burnley if any Blackburn fans are watching. I apologise for that. But I don't think it is a confidence thing. I think a lack of quality is a confidence thing. You know, people panicking and just getting rid of the ball rather than being brave on it. I think that's a lack of confidence thing by all means. But not willing to put your body on the line, that's not a confidence thing for me. That's the minimum requirement for me. You know, when you sign up to be a professional footballer, obviously it's not going to be in your terms and conditions of your contract, but it should be unwritten that you do everything you can to stop that ball going in the back of your net. And once or twice, you can understand it. 22 times in 7 games, someone's got to be like, hold on a minute here, what on earth is going on? You know, it's, what do we have to do? How bad does it have to get on the road for us to try and be hard to beat? Because the formation doesn't allow us to be hard to beat. It did at Norwich, and for some god unknown reason, we've then gone in the following away game yesterday with this silly three at the back, which has never worked. To be fair to Rob and Simon Oxley on the Three Counties interview, he's kind of got out of Rob the thinking behind playing Hashioka left centre-back, Holmes right centre-back. But in the multitude of times that Hashioka's played left centre-back in a Luton shirt, or what has he seen that could possibly make him think that Hashioka can in any way do that job comfortably? Even more so when 4 days prior, Holmes looked absolutely hunky-dory left centre-back. Hashi looked perfectly fine right centre-back. They looked comfortable. Did they look brilliant? No, because they're both still out of position, but they looked like they could do the job comfortably. Poor old Hashi. I mean, if there was some water around there, I'd have expected a fish to be laying next to it because he looked like a fish out of water. It's not the first time. You know, he was moved over to the left against Middlesbrough, got run ragged. He moved over to the left against Bournemouth in that game where we were 3-0 up last season. And this is all because of injuries, and I understand that completely. But he got run ragged in that game. There are other examples as well, you know. What gives him the impression that Hashi can do that job, even if it is to deal with, you know, one side and the other side. Hashi's better on the right. Holmes is better on the left. You just got to take your chance. I mean, as it turned out, the people that they were trying to protect against, the left-sided ones, he ended up scoring the second goal anyway. So, and obviously that's with hindsight, but you just want us to be hard to beat. You know, Rob came out with that thing after Swansea that he got that the fans were upset because the fans want to see the team play well and win. That was a bad statement. And I didn't pick up on it at the time, but that was a bad statement. When you've just been clapped at every Premier League ground that you've lost at, that was a bit of a silly statement to make.
Is that though because everybody recognises the quality of the Premier League? Everybody knew that you were bang up against it anyway, regardless of what happened.
But they gave their all in every Premier League game, didn't they? They left it all out there. Whether it's true or not, there is a perception that by not putting themselves in the way of a ball, that they're not doing that here. 3 of them, and they didn't even have to move very far to block that first goal. And the kid making his first start, his first ever senior goal. He's not going to get an easy one in his life. And just to compound the misery, he's on loan from a Premier League club.
Is this what you're hearing then in conversations, and maybe overheard conversations in a way?
Absolutely. I had more conversations with people yesterday than ever before because I went to the toilet after I'd had a few sherbets, more than I normally would because I met up with my mate in the pub beforehand. So I went to the toilet at half time. I don't normally do that. I'm normally staying in the stands and talking to people. But I went down to the toilet towards the end of half time because there was a mass exodus to this half time. Thought, so I'm not going to queue, so I'll just sit up here. And it went down towards the end of half time. The amount of people, and second half is literally about to start as I'm making my way out of the toilet. The amount of people that were still down there. You're talking in the hundreds. You're not talking in the tens, just finishing their pint and getting ready to go back for the second half. Football wasn't being shown down there. They had the Sky Sports programme on as well. And people were talking to me. And I spoke to them because that's, you know, people had elected me to be in a position of representing them. So, you know, I'll never shirk that, and that's absolutely fine. But the football game was going on as we were doing it, and no one seemed bothered by it. It's just a disillusionment. And people are like, you know, you're hearing things like they can't be bothered, and I'll like I say, I'll always dispute that. But I don't think it's asking too much for players to get in the way of a shot that's going on their goal. I really don't. And you look at the amount of times that semi-long distance shots have ended up in our goal with no one near it. I'd much rather the ball hits someone and goes in than just goes in. And I think that's the consensus of everyone. And as for the second goal, I mean, I don't know what Chong Swan Lake impression is to try and cut that long ball out. But once the guy's through, I mean, he's just scored the first one. He's clean through. There's no massive effort to get back and try and stop him from cutting inside. And then the cross comes over. We're lucky that the centre forward, the number 9's useless. Otherwise, he'd have had a tap in. I couldn't work out if it hit him and went backwards or if Kaminsky got a save on it and it went backwards. But either way, no one's near Beck for him to put it in the bottom corner. And then you look around and Chong's on the corner of the box pointing at people. I thought, you've got a bit of a cheek after what happened at Norwich and that effort to stop the long ball that created this goal. It's just like they're so easily disorganised at the back in this formation, which is why we were so encouraged by the formation that we saw at Norwich. Yes, we didn't want the individual errors. No one's near anyone in this three at the back when we go away from home. We're so easy to beat. We don't even want to win away from home now as fans. We just want to be hard to beat. And if we can happen to get a point and build on the road to recovery, happy days. I don't think anyone's seeing any shoots of semblance that that's going to happen, though. If anything, we're getting easier to beat.
I mean, that's sad to hear about if people are sort of going to the game but not really paying attention. That's not really what you want to hear. But I suppose, when the team sheet came out, it raised my eyebrows because, we talked about the preview, what we expected to happen. And obviously there's not a lot that can happen because of the players available. I know there's a lot of people clamouring for Pelly and, fair play if that's your view. He's sat there and not really getting a look in. But
they're only clamouring for Penny. Sorry to interrupt you. They're only clamouring for Pelly because they're now of the opinion that nobody can do any worse. So you might as well give him a go because the very least he's got is what every Luton fan's looking for. Heart, passion, desire, drive, effort, energy. The very things that our midfield seemingly lack away from home, particularly when there's only two of them up against three, as was yet again the case yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I only reference that because that seems to be what I'm gathering. I'm getting what people are saying about Pelly, and that's fair enough. But the one for me, obviously, we talked about what changes we thought there might be, and I thought 2 max, but obviously it seemed nailed on that Marvellous Nakamba would come in. Now he sat on the bench the whole time. It seems like if you're going to play him at some games and not others, which is true, and when people are questioning why he's not on there, then I reiterate that question was asked, and Edward said they're going to have to manage him and see how that goes. I guess that people might think that changed when he played the 2 games for Zimbabwe and then came back and played another 90 minutes for Luton. So suddenly he played 3 games in a week, and whether that changed, but maybe there's been a reaction or something but he didn't. But if you're going to use him sparingly, it seems to me like away is the place to do it. But again, he's not on the team sheet, and I think that did worry me because, again, we've seen time and again that you get to a 3rd game week and the players are all, most of the players are all back on the same team sheet, and then it sort of goes a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, we should say that we didn't lose yesterday because of a lack of legs or tiredness or anything to do with that. It wasn't that. In fairness to Rob, Nakamba can only really play in a 3-man midfield, and he didn't. He went with a 5-2-3 formation yesterday with Jacob Brown doing the sort of in-between role of attack and midfield. So I can see why Nakamba doesn't play. Of course, I don't agree with it. I'm with you. I would have wanted Nakamba to go and play,
On that formation then, I know we talked about formation. It seems like we're not going to get our wish really of a 4 at the back. But ahead then, I'm almost thinking, why are we then going with a 2-man strike force? Wouldn't you play the 1 and give more bodies in midfield?
I can only assume. Don't know which one to drop. Elijah scored 3 and 3 before yesterday. Morris is your captain. Which one do you drop? You don't drop your captain, and we probably saw a good piece of evidence of why Morris is captain yesterday, which we'll come on to in a moment. But we all know that Eli's a confidence man. And to be fair, Eli was the closest to anyone to scoring straight after they scored. You know, really good shot, really good save by a goalkeeper that we highlighted in the preview was outperforming his numbers this season, and you can see why. He didn't have a lot to do, but what he had to do, he did it very, very well. If you didn't know names on the back of his shirts, you could have been forgiven that they still had Kaminsky in goal. Such was the ease with which he dealt with the shots that he had to deal with. It's good that he got a good reception, and I'm glad or at least I think he's okay, because he went down with an ankle injury in the first half, and that's worrying because if Player of the Season was being given out tomorrow, he gets every award going, doesn't he? Kaminsky, you know, after Alfie's been injured. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at away from home, Jimbo. People are disillusioned with it to the point now that they just want a bit of energy, a bit of passion, a bit of fight, and they're the characteristics they're looking for. They're not even that worried about winning. You know, if we lose with them characteristics, then people are like, well, okay, that's fine. But when you're not getting those, and we're well in excess of 600 quid now for this 7-game run, with absolutely zero return. Not even we apologise. I mean, Rob even had to signal to the players to come over yesterday. That's not good, you know? The very least you can do, and I said it after Norwich as well, the very least you can do, win, lose or draw, is go and acknowledge the people who pay a lot of money. 2 Saturdays before Christmas have gone and watched you. They did come over, but Rob had to motion to them to come over. Some of them were drifting over, and so some of them he was to like get over a bit quicker. But you shouldn't have, your manager shouldn't have to do that. That again should be well within you to do.
To give the benefit of the doubt there, he does do that, getting the players to come over, and he did that when one on Tuesday. So, you know, I think maybe the benefit of the doubt there is that he does that all the time. It's just obviously you notice.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But we were defending the half in front of the Luton fans in the second half. Well, I say defending it. We didn't have much defending to do because, like I said, they declared. So there was no reason for them to move forward and then come back. Okay, they shake hands with the opposition. I get all of that. It's not like they're coming from the Oak Road down to the Kenilworth Road like they do at home games, when usually they're attacking the Kenilworth end in the second half. Listen, they did come over. To be fair, Clark and Morris were right in front of the fans. Clark gave his shirt away like he always does. Credit to him for that. He always does that. You know, he's taken a lot of stick this season. As we've said, some of it justified, some of it really, really bad. But, you know, he always fronts up. Again, not everyone came right over, but, you know, at least they were all in a group. But it's a fan base that feels like they're being accepted rather than appreciated. Certainly, if they came out with that "football is nothing without the fans" line now, people would say, well, you know, we're not being treated like that kind of thing. That's what I don't really know exactly how to say it, but you kind of get the drift that disillusioned would probably be the word to sum it up. So that's a bad place to be, really, isn't it? And I think at half time, when you've lost the first half 2-0, could have been 3, 4, 5, all in the last 15 minutes of it. We were comfortable for the first half an hour. That point should be made. This wasn't a Middlesbrough where we were looking at their goal and you kind of thought if someone was going to score first, it would be us, like at Middlesbrough. That was never the case. But at the same time, their goal wasn't imminently coming either, again, until we make mistakes. But then for the next 15 minutes, could have been any number that they wanted, and thankfully it was only 2. So the least you'd have expected then was a resounding boo from the away end. Not that I would support that, but that's generally the reaction when a team is losing in that fashion in the last 15 minutes of a half. Barely a murmur, which is good in a way because, you know, the boos weren't on the players' backs, but it just shows how, yeah, to go back to that word, disillusioned supporters are away from home. And these are the most loyal fans who go all over the country. And if they're disillusioned, something's got to be wrong somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I mean that's the experience you've got in that away end, and yeah, I have to take it because I'm not in that away end. So all I can say when I hear it is that's quite sad. It's the stuff that I was worried that might happen, and because, you know, success and joy and unity and stuff is the hardest thing to build. But in not just football, it's easier. It's harder to create anything in life than it is to destroy it. Destroy it's easy, and that seems to be like where it is at the moment, and that's sad. That's really is.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I need to say here, though, is this is an on-field thing. I don't think there's a disillusionment over the whole club. I mean, Monday night could be the biggest win that the football club's ever going to have or ever had in its history. And the future of our football club could be secured forever and a day on Monday night. And the board of directors and everyone who got them to that stage, and we'll come on to that at the end, deserve an absolute enormous amount of credit for it. But at the same time, what you've just said there about how they've built up the unity and everything, it was largely born out of transparency, a common message, a regular message and a theme. That messaging has gone.
Not what, but success as well. I mean, that's the main thing, isn't it? Success.
Of course, success helps. Success helps. But, people, the plan was being told to people, and people would get behind it. Let's not forget, this is not the first time in the Championship that we've stunk the gaff out. So when Graham Jones was manager, we'd done it regularly. We lost 7-0 in one game. I still don't remember fans being as disillusioned as this. They were angrier than this.
Well, I suppose it's a level of expectation. And remember at the beginning of the season, we were saying expectation will be the buzzword of the season. And we haven't really mentioned it, but it's still there as like the underlying foundation of what we're all experiencing. I think that we all expected to be better. The club expected to be better. Rob did, we did, everybody did, and it's not. Whereas if you try to compare that Graham Jones Championship season to this, we'd just come from League One, and the season before that we were in League Two, and so everybody was like, "Oh, this is great, this is novel," and so. But now it's the expectation is so much higher. The crash down from that high level is more significant.
But I think the big difference is, even though you're right, we'd just come up a level, there was probably a perception under Graham Jones that the team wasn't underperforming to the level it is now. And I think that's the crux of it. I think that's why fans are getting a bit disheartened by it all, because you can see, and we've seen this season, that this team can do it. Watford at home, Sunderland at home, half an hour at Portsmouth. We look a really good side. You just look at the squad, or even the 11 that went out yesterday, man for man. Forget form, forget confidence, forget anything else, and play the game on paper. That's not a 19th in the Championship side. That's a top half in the Championship side. Is it a top two? Probably not, but it's definitely a top half in the Championship side. I look at some of the teams in the top half, Watford being one of them. Man for man, I'd have that squad over theirs any day of the week. So for some reason it's underperforming, and nothing is changing, and it's continuing to underperform. The messages are exactly the same. We must learn from our mistakes. Well, let's come on to Liam Walsh, shall we? He hasn't learned from his mistake, has he? Because, I mean, let's get it right. I don't think we were scoring in a month of Sundays yesterday. But at 2-0 with 20-ish minutes left, Luton have rescued 2-0 down from 20 minutes to go before. Hell, they've done it on that ground. So the game wasn't gone at this point.
They had an opportunity to give me my 2-1 scoreline and put me further ahead of you, didn't they? At least.
Which might be the only positive I've got out of the afternoon, actually, because we sure as heck weren't scoring a second one to get my correct score in. But it's an absolutely horrible tackle. The Japanese fella Ohashi is mighty lucky he's got two legs to use today. It's a terrible tackle. He's 25 yards from his own goal. Why are you tackling him in that fashion 25 yards from he's going nowhere. His next move is going to be to pass the ball to someone else. So you don't even need to make that tackle. I mean, so it's brain dead in the extreme. To say it was late, I mean, if he was any later, he'd have probably bumped into some fella in a red suit with a white beard holding on to a bunch of reindeers. He couldn't, if he was any later. It was unbelievably late. And his captain let him know what he thought of it. Or at least that's the perception I got from it. I've not watched any of this game back. I can't stomach watching this one back. So I'm just reciting what I saw from the stands. Potentially with a little bit of, beer goggles and things. But it looked to me like his captain was telling him exactly what he thought of what he'd just done. And fair enough, because I didn't particularly.
Well, I mean, if you haven't seen it, and if nobody else has seen it, I would have watched it back. And Carlton Morris gives him 2 shoves to get off and gives him an earful, and then sort of
He's about to keep going, isn't he?
Bumps into him again.
The Blackburn captain pulls him away from it, though, doesn't he?
So, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I think the immediate reaction of that is that everybody's on Carlton's side and can understand why he's doing that. And I think that would be the general reaction, but it depends what you're saying to him.
Well, I'd imagine
ramifications once they get back in the dressing room. What
I would imagine that the vibe is something along the lines of, "You've just let us all down there," which he has. Doesn't need me to sit here and tell him that. I'd be amazed if by the time he got to the dressing room he hadn't worked that out for himself anyway. Doesn't need me to come out with all of this hyperbole nonsense that I've seen doing the rounds on social media and things that, I won't justify. The geezer should be feeling bad for, because this is not his first dance. This is the second time he's been sent off, and it would have been 3 if the referee hadn't got it monumentally wrong at Middlesbrough. He's only played 10 games. Don't even think he's completed 4 full games of football for Luton, and he's going to be suspended for 7 in total. The 3 that he's had and 4 that he's about to get. At a time when we've got an injury crisis, thankfully not so much in midfield, but we're still without Baptiste in the centre of the park. The last thing we needed yesterday, it's a horrible tackle. I don't even know why it takes the referee so long to get a red card out, because we're 80, 90 yards away, and I knew he was getting a red card the second that he went in, because like I say, he couldn't have been any later if he tried. Couldn't have gone in with any more force if he tried. It was exactly the same tackle that he made against Oxford. And the only difference was he had 10 more minutes before he done it this time. It's just, if the message is we need to learn from our mistakes, we need to add that one down to the list of mistakes that we need to learn from, because, and now we're without a geezer that we could really use in these next games, particularly against Swansea, his former club, where we're not going to get any of the ball. So when we get it, someone who's good on the ball would be mighty useful to us. And he ain't going to kick a ball in anger now until January the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can see what a real bind that's put Luton in, and that's why I think most people were sort of supportive of Carlton Morris's reaction. But he's been like that to one degree or another, not necessarily pushing people, but trying to urge them to buck up their ideas. And he's had to do that. And I suppose that's the role of the captain, and I've got no issue with that. But I mean, on the Walsh thing, 2 almost identical tackles, but we talked about at the time, he could easily have been sent off against Middlesbrough for a rough tackle as well. So it's a pattern of late or bad tackles. I don't know how you assess that or change that, because we're getting told that he's not a bad kid and he's not meant to do it on purpose, and I believe that. Why would you? You wouldn't mean to do that on purpose, but it's costing Luton now, and that is a problem.
Yeah, I know. I believe that as well. I just think this is poor technique rather than, intent to go and injure someone, because, I mean, the way he tackled yesterday, he could easily have got injured more than or as much as the other fella. It was reckless. There was no control to it or anything, and they're both very lucky that they've walked away from the scene of the crime. And let's hope, let's hope no damage was done to the other fella. He looks a good player, to be fair. He set the second goal up, didn't he? We referenced him in the thing. It was going to be a hashy derby down that side, and that's how it was. But yeah, when you're in an injury crisis, and I know when you're on the pitch, you're not thinking, "Oh, well, half of my team are injured. I need to be careful here." But you've got to show a bit more responsibility than that, especially when you've come onto the pitch with the role of helping us in the game. For the second time, go and help us would be the message. And for the second time in 10 games or whatever it is, he's done anything but help. And at 2-0, down to 10 men, if the game wasn't done, it's officially done then. And
yeah, I mean, game's gone at that point, isn't it? And everybody knew it. But like I say, when the first goal goes in, given Blackburn's record, I'm like, well, that's pretty much done. The 2 records, in fact. Obviously, Luton's awful on the road, and they're in such a rich vein of grinding out wins, seemingly, that there's got to be a really abrupt change in how both are performing for that to alter the end result. I didn't think that was ever going to be on the cards.
Well, certainly how it played out, because it was easy for them, really. We didn't get in behind them in that second half. All the crosses that we put in were from deep. I think Morris flashed a shot wide of the post, yard wide of the post or so, from just inside the box. And that was pretty much as good as it got, really. So, yeah, whilst, like I said, the glass half full verdict would be we dominated the second half, you're using a lot of leverage in the word dominated, because it wasn't like storm on their goal or anything like that. It was just, we just had the ball in their half of the pitch rather than them having it in our half of the pitch. We're never going to score. Or at least I didn't sit there thinking, cool, there's a goal coming here. To be fair to us, I didn't think there was a goal coming in the other direction either. But they still nearly scored it in injury time, Kaminski makes a brilliant save from the number 9. And, I mean, he's got to score, really, but fair play to Kaminski. He saved it. It's just another team defeat, though, isn't it? In a 2024 where Luton fans have gone all over the country in their numbers, and they've got one away win to show for it. And let's be honest, I don't think anyone that went yesterday of the 705 fully expect us to get anything at Bristol City. And I don't think any Luton fan, based on what we saw against Swansea 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, 2 games ago, think we're going to get anything down there. So we're going to win 2024 as we sit here right now, most likely having one away win to show for it. And we needed Kaminski to save a one-on-one there to come away with that as well at Millwall. And that's the thing, isn't it? You would think with a record like that, and yes, absolutely some of it's Premier League, but let's not forget, in 2024, we went to Burnley in the Premier League, who came down with us. We couldn't win that game. We went to Wolves, who've only won 3 games anywhere since March. Couldn't come away with a win there. We went to Crystal Palace. We couldn't come away with a win there. These aren't... Yes, there's Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Manchester City in amongst that run, but it's not all of the time in the Premier League. There were winnable Premier League games there. We've come away with one away win in 2024, and nothing has changed in that time. We're still playing this same basket case 3 defender formation that hasn't worked from the first day of the year and isn't going to work on the last day of the year in terms of making us hard to beat. How often can you go away from home with the same messaging and the same approach and think that something's going to change? Surely something has to change, because what are we going to do? I think I'm right in saying we've still got another 13 away games left this season. I think it's 13. There's 25 games. I think it's 12 at home, 13 away. If it's the other way around, I apologise. Are we just going to lose all 13? Because if we are, you ain't going to get enough points at home to guarantee staying up unless 3 teams are truly bad in this league. And that is the concern. I don't think any Luton fan right now is worried about getting promoted. And I don't think any Luton fan right now would be critical of what 2020 have done overall. But I do think Luton fans are worried that we're potentially going to sleepwalk is the wrong word, but it's the word being used. That we're going to end up in a relegation battle and end up in League One, having just been in the Premier League, without trying to change something about it before we get there. And that's the concern.
This is the current boom and bust, isn't it? Because on Tuesday you're thinking we're not in a relegation battle, even though it's the same points between relegation as we managed then. And then you lose that one and you think you are in a relegation. And I think you're right when you look at currently home form is what's keeping them up. And that is a major issue that I'm not sure anybody can really put a finger on as to why away is so terrible and home not necessarily cracked it, but grinding it out occasionally, with the exception of the other day. And they were well worth it, well worth the win. But, there's a sense that if the home form doesn't, and they can't grind it out with the home form all the way, and don't forget there's some big teams coming to Kenilworth Road as well in this division currently, then at the minute it looks like 2 points a game, which is okay. But if that changes and then the teams at the bottom start picking up, then the whole scenario can flip around. So at the moment, I think it's legitimate that people are worried about the relegation battle that you could get dragged into. At the minute, it doesn't look like those teams at the bottom are going to do it, but you don't know. And so you need to put some distance between you in some fashion. And if you get into the situation where you win a game at home, okay, great. Maybe we've cracked it. Then you lose away. You're just never going anywhere.
You're not, but by not changing it away, the perception is, and again, this might be right, it might be wrong, there's no communication either way to tell us otherwise, so we have to read between the lines. But by not changing it, the perception is everything's going to be okay. Because if you were concerned, you would change, would you not? Like, this is a 12-month thing. Yes, it's only 7 away defeats on the trot, but this is a 12-month thing away from home. And yeah, like I said, some of it is the Premier League. Some of those teams are in the Championship now that we played away from home in 2024. You know?
How about this then, as a different way of framing it? Is there perhaps a belief, as you said, that on paper these players are better than what they're doing and should be better, and that eventually it will click, rather than dealing with the here and the now that it's not, and trying to be more pragmatic and play in the percentages, which is why earlier on I mentioned why we're bothering to play 2 men up front if you're not really getting much joy, and just try and be hard to beat for a start.
But that's it, isn't it? If we do try that, then that's fine, because that's something different. We warmed to that Norwich performance because there was something different. Then we revert to type again. We warmed to Tuesday night because it was a good performance. It offered up some hope. Then we revert back to more basket case selections of Hashioka at left centre-half. Hasn't worked throughout 2024. What's to suggest it was going to work yesterday? If it's something that worked and that change happened and then it just didn't work yesterday, well, that's just mighty bad luck. But that particular positional move hasn't worked at any stage in 2024. So what has happened in 4 days to suddenly, having worked on Tuesday night, what has suddenly happened in 4 days that makes you think something that hasn't worked in the whole calendar year is suddenly going to work 4 days later? That strikes you as muddled thinking. This is what, as fans, we can't get our head around. Something that is constantly not working over a 12-month period. This isn't a 2-week period or anything like that. Hashioka's been playing left centre-half pretty much at sporadic times, pretty much for the whole time he's been at this football club, and hasn't played that position particularly well. No one's blaming him. We can all see that it's not a position that is of his strength. Yet here we are at the end of this calendar year, still playing this, still in the belief that something is going to work. At which point, the manager is giving out the same comment: we need to learn from our mistakes. In near enough every press conference after we lose a game, or in a pre-match after we've lost a game, we have to learn from our mistakes. Well, what's learning from that mistake? Because it's still constantly happening. How can you expect your players to learn from their mistakes if the people guiding them aren't learning from their mistakes? And it has to be a mistake, because the bloke just looks like it's alien territory to him. And even when it works, or even when he's in position and he's got the ball, his very first touch has to be to come inside. And any team that's worth their salt just get their number 9 to sit there, because they know he can't go on the outside with a left foot that he hasn't got. He's going to turn bang into you, and you're either going to get the ball off of him, or he's going to have to whack it long, in which case you can recycle the ball. It's just not a positional trait that works. You've just gone to the form team in the division and basically sold yourself down that left-hand side. And lo and behold, the geezer who plays on the right-hand side scores the first one, admittedly coming inside and scoring the first one, and they set the second one up from that side. That's not being hard to beat, Jimbo. That is offering yourself a chance.
I know in this scenario it's not hard to beat, but I'm saying, should the model from now on just be right? The away form is that bad, we're going to be hard to beat, and park the bus, essentially.
Yes, it should. But we're on a 7-game losing streak here. That should have been the case after 3. And it hasn't been. And we're still going with this same 3 at the back nonsense. It has not worked. Now, it might be what Rob wants to do, and if it is, then that's absolutely fine. And we're in a world where even Pep Guardiola isn't changing, and Man City have lost again today. So this is by no means a Rob Edwards-centric thing. But surely for the good of the whole team, everyone owes it to themselves now to try something different. Players and management owe it to the supporters to try something different. Management owes it to the players to try something different. The players owe it to themselves, for it to be able to see for themselves if something different can happen. And otherwise, same thing's going to happen. We go to Bristol City, we put 3 centre-halves. They play with 2 wingers, Mehmeti and I can't remember the guy on the other side, with Twine in between them and a striker up front. We all know what's going to happen. If Mehmeti doesn't kill us down the left-hand side, the geezer doing on the right-hand side will do. And if they don't, then Twine will get something from a cutback and he'll score. Because we've seen it all year and it doesn't change. And we don't learn from our mistakes. And we just go and do the same film in the next away game, hoping that something will change. There is no structural plan that's going to make it change. And then if by some hook or crook we finally get it sorted defensively, we'll have 3 against 2 in midfield in a negative fashion. Does not work. This is not a 5-game thing. This is pretty much now a 25-game away day disaster. And I'm sorry, but that is far too long for the penny not to drop and changes not to be tried. Now, if the changes are tried and don't work, that's fine. Then we're up shit street and we really do need to go and find a few more paddles. But the change did work at Norwich. The individuals involved in the change let the structure down. And that's where fans are getting frustrated, Jimbo, because they're paying bloody good money, more money than they should be paying in this division, may I just add, because you only have to pay £30 for a ticket in the Premier League. Very few tickets have been less than £30 in this league. They're paying more money than they should, and they're getting the same problems trotted out in front of them, and they can't do nothing about it. And then they stop going, well, you're not very supportive, are you? Well, what is there to support? Fans are in a situation where they can't escape you're indebted. You love your club. He's here, you want to go and support it. You really go up to Blackburn full of hope because you've had a really good win against Stoke on Tuesday night. And yes, of course, Stoke terrible. Couldn't even win yesterday. Haven't won a game in however long and look a real bad side. Papered over a lot of cracks. All of that. And people who pointed that out at the end of the last podcast, you're absolutely right in hindsight. But that hope was there. Then you see Hashioka left centre-back and you resign to your fate. And I stress, that's not on Hashioka. It's not on Hashioka. I wouldn't ask Roger Federer to go and be the world number 1 table tennis player. It's a different game.
Yeah, you make good points. It's a really tricky one.
Accountability. That's the word I've been searching for all throughout this. There doesn't seem to be an accountability. The people that have got to learn from their mistakes, who haven't learned from their mistakes, are getting no accountability. Sorry to cut in and just go back to where we were half an hour ago. It's just suddenly dawned on me. There's no accountability. You make the mistake, you don't learn from it. You make the mistake again, you get given the chance to make the mistake a third time. The manager keeps on making this same structural mistake of Hashioka down that side. There's no accountability. He'll make it again somewhere along the line. He's got injuries, but he has not got an injury situation that suggests that Holmes has to play right centre-back and Hashioka has to play left centre-back. They can swap around. It worked fine on Tuesday night. Is it ideal? Is it what he wants to do? No, but it worked. Let it work again. Because one of the problems that we've got is no one plays in the same position more than 3 times. They haven't got a foggiest idea where they are. And people are in so much space against us, and people have just had enough of it now.
Oh, part of the point I was going to make, and that I think raises something else that, yeah, you're right. I think that could be a problem, which is why I'm saying, stop trying to assume perhaps that the players can do different tasks at the moment. It's a round pegs in round hole scenario, which is difficult. We have to say that the injuries are all there in defence, and we heard before the game that the 6 players that are out, none of them can move back unless there's some surprise along the way. There is, Rua Waters back on the grass, but broken foot can take a long time. I think Amari'i Bell's going to be the closest one to coming back, but again, you're essentially going to have to get through the Christmas period with the squad that we've got now, minus Liam Walsh because he's suspended for 4 games. So, did we see perhaps maybe out of sheer desperation to try and get something, but hopefully not? The answer there is what we were saying before the game. JJ and Zach Nelson came on. Is there an answer there? Certainly, if we're talking defensively, JJ.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the geezer who scored their first goal, England under-18 international. They're fine playing an England under-18 international. Surely we can play an England under-19 international. I mean, in theory, the under-19 international should be better than the under-18 international. They played on the same side, so you'd have expected Johnson to, again, it's only in theory, have been better than their guy. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, what have you got to lose? Because you're losing anyway. Try something different. If you try something different and it doesn't work, then that's fine. We've seen something different. We're not... the only time we've seen something different in this 7-game away run was at Norwich. And it's fine. Individuals let it down. Keep the structure. Find the right combination of individuals within that structure. Let's go with it. Because this one does not work.
Yeah, because in the preview, Rob did say that maybe the Norwich game was of a blueprint of sort. Everything, there's going to be
another thing that gave Luton fans hope.
There's going to be nuances, aren't there, from game to game, depending on who you're playing. But it did the team sheet did seem not to take that into account.
I don't have a problem with the team sheet per se. As we said in the preview, I think we'd all have gone with Nakamba and not gone with Jacob Brown. I think we'd all have done that. But the team sheet itself, I'm fine with it. But when I see Hashioka lining up at left centre-back, if there was a wall, I'd have banged my head against it. You know. Because, yeah, I'm just repeating myself, but it hasn't worked. It's not going to work. And it's certainly not going to work within 4 days of him playing right centre-back. And that's not 4 days of training. That's a day of recovery, day and a bit of training, and then off up to Blackburn for an overnight stay. It's not going to work.
The evidence is there, isn't it? We've got enough of a body of it to be able to say that with some degree of confidence, which is, I'm not going to argue against it because that is how it's played out.
And that's why supporters are questioning why we're still seeing it. And that's why supporters are questioning whether he should be the manager or not, because he's the person who's putting that person into that structure which doesn't work and seemingly refusing to change. I don't know why he refuses to change it, but it's certainly not because of results, is it? Because if it was because of results, you would change it, because I'm assuming, pretty safely I think, that he doesn't want to lose 7 away games on the trot. Me, if I've lost 3 away games on the trot, I'm scratching my head and thinking, well, what can we do different? Luton, 6 of the 7, they've done exactly the same thing, and guess what? It's yielded exactly the same result. Yeah. Insanity, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and then, just replay the other...
That's what I said.
The other 6 reviews we've done.
That's what we've said, Like I say, I think people are justified in paying the money that they pay to want to see something different. Now, whether that's something, as I said after the Swansea game, whether that's something different is the structure of the team, the person picking the team, or the persons in the team, whatever that difference is, and that's for the people above, well, I was going to say my pay grade, but I'm not on the payroll anyway, but that's for them people to decide. But there has to be a change of something now if you want people to keep on going to these football matches that are being charged an awful lot of money to see the same old thing. If you go to a cinema and they replay the same film that you've already seen before, chances are you'll see 5 minutes of it, you'll get up, say, I'm not going to watch the rest of that. Football's not like that. So that can be exploited. But it doesn't mean to say it should be.
Depends if it's Back to the Future. I'm watching that all day long.
Might be Doctor Who. Maybe we might go back in time finally. Yeah,
Is then another question for you? Are we now looking, because the questions have started because of the time of year. They started in the preview thinking about looking to the transfer window to do this, and I think everybody's banking on that might be the case. And there's been some rumour about a a signing that looks like it might be on the card somewhere from Belgium.
I mean, I said my prayers and Christ has come along.
Yeah, exactly. Apologies, I forget his surname, but yeah, his first name is Christ. Is that the change that not necessarily that you think will happen, because we don't know, that you hope will happen?
Well, I think something has to happen in this transfer window because there's too many injuries, right? I referred back to a few podcasts ago. You asked me if we were in a relegation zone, a relegation battle. I said no, because we've got a squad that's far too good to be in a relegation battle. Well, a third of that squad isn't with us no more, or for the foreseeable. So a third of that squad needs replacing. Now, when you go to the transfer window, and the summer transfer window in particular is a real beef. A lot of fans have problems with the last two transfer windows. I cut everyone some slack in January. There seemed to be this universal, we're shit scared of PSR, no one's doing any business in January. And if Luton are always going to be a trickle-down effect transfer scenario, i.e. someone needs to do a transfer to allow us to do a transfer for the next person in the food chain to go, i.e. Leicester would have to buy someone to then release Tom Cannon to then release Joe Taylor as a trickle-down effect scenario. So if no one's doing business to start off with, Luton are going to struggle to do the middle part of the business. And, so I've sympathy with January, and I'll question, I'll always defend that January, whilst it could have been better, of course it could, every transfer window can. There were mitigating circumstances around that one. I think where people are frustrated with the summer transfer window is, I can't speak for every Luton fan, but I can speak for Luton fans who come up to talk to me regularly. I don't think they wanted or expected Luton to go out and buy 20, 30 million pounds worth of players. I think everyone accepts that the board are quite rightly putting their money behind Power Court or the Premier League money behind Power Court. I don't know for sure, but I would wager some of the Premier League money has been used to pay off investors that have invested an awful lot of their money over 15 years. And I don't think any Luton fan, if they were told that, would have a problem with that. Because they saved the club with the money that they put in. They're more than entitled to that money back out. That's how you'd expect any business to run. But I think Luton fans, I think where their frustrations are justified is that when you are a Premier League club or you've just come out of the Premier League, you can park the injury-prone players transfer market from the start. If you have to go down that route right at the end as a kind of panic option just to bolster your squad, then fair enough. Our first signing was Shandon Baptiste. Fantastic footballer. Trouble is, in a 46-game season, if you see him for 16 games, you've done well. And that's supposedly a replacement for Barkley or Sambi Lokonga. That doesn't add up. No one's expecting them to go and buy a £10 million midfielder. But the least you can do is find a midfielder, or take your time to find a midfielder that hasn't got an injury-prone record that could give you an option for 40 of those 46 games or whatever. I think that's justified in thinking. I think the £10 million players, and that's going to sound stupid because the rumoured fee for Mark McGuinness is that, but I think the £10 million player route to replace everyone that left, I think that's pie in the sky for where Luton are, even allowing for the Premier League money because of Power Court, and Power Court's the most important thing, always will be, always was, always will be. But we seem to be shopping in the same market that we shopped in when we came from below into this league rather than down into this league. And I think that part was wrong. And I think if they, maybe, I don't know, because again, no one's saying anything, but maybe if they had their time again, they would change that. And we'll find out in January, because if they're still shopping in that same market of injury-prone players, then we've got a bit of an issue here, because some injuries are bad luck. Alfie Doughty's injury is bad luck. Some injuries aren't bad luck. Ted Mengi's was going to happen once surgery didn't happen. Shandon Baptiste being injured, sorry, it's not bad luck. That's his career. Doesn't want to be injured? Of course he doesn't. And I'm not saying he does for 1 minute, and I feel really sorry for the guy that you can't get a run of play. Reece Burke, Liam Walsh. These aren't bad luck ones. These are regular ones. Now, I'm not blaming the player. It's just how it is. But you didn't have to sign Liam Walsh and Shandon Baptiste as your first options. Walsh might not have been, but Baptiste signed so early in the transfer window, I can only assume he was the first option. And I think that's what disappoints most fans in in the summer. And hopefully that doesn't happen again. And of course, we've got this situation. The last 3 goals we've conceded have been against Premier League loans. We don't have a single Premier League loan. Derby, who are coming up on Friday, have got 4 of them. That's another area that they can visit. The squad needs work in January, whether they planned to or not because of the injuries. The squad needs work. So yes, January is going to be a big thing. And if they're going to give Rob proper support, i.e. not bring in injury-prone players that come February he's not got any use of, then that's a positive, and then that's on Rob then to improve everything. But if you do give him injury-prone players who then get injured, you can't really expect him to work miracles. You can expect him to make tactical tweaks and nuances and changes if something's not working, but I don't think you can expect Rome to be built in a day when you've not given him no bricks to build it with.
Well, yeah.
Solid bricks to build it with.
Yeah. I mean, on that point, for me, I think, yes, January is going to be important. It's still hard to get anyone in January. I think to fix it is a 2-window job because it's January. It's pretty hard. Which brings me to one of the points that I parked earlier, is that I remembered it at, I don't know where, at the back of my mind, that after Burnley beat Luton on that first day of the season, they were interviewing Scott Parker. That's his first game in charge of Burnley, competitive charge. In that little stand they have just in front of the Kenilworth Road stand. And they asked him about what he's done over the summer or stuff to effectively win that game 4-1 against a team that finished above them in Premier League. I don't think the question was put to him like that, but that's the implication of it. And he said, because they had a lot of movement in the summer window, and he said, those players there had to be some changes. A lot of them were used to losing. And that kind of came out to me don't know why, just came out to me. And are we in that situation?
Well, I think we are away from home, aren't we? I mean, I'm not in the dressing room. But at some point there has to be a thought through it, because they're human beings, right? At some point, and I'm not blaming them for this if they have got that thought, but at some point in a game of football they must think, oh shit, we're going to lose again. Because now, whether that's when a goal goes in, whether it's at 0-0 and and because we're away from home, there's that vibe that, obviously it's the job of someone in that dressing room to get those thoughts out of people's heads, but they're human beings. People have very, very different thoughts, for all different manner of things, as we kind of highlighted when we had Mark with us on the podcast a week going far away from football. So the human brain works in weird ways, as we saw with Liam Walsh's human brain yesterday. It worked in a weird way for a split second, didn't it? And it cost us. In which case, Pellerado Campanzu is not used to losing because he's not been on a football pitch enough to lose. He's the most positive person that we've got at this club. He's the heartbeat of this club. He's the fulcrum. He's the centrepiece. He's everything that's good about what's got us to the Premier League. Why aren't we trying him? Everything else is not working. Now, I actually think since Middlesbrough away, Jordan Clark's been very, very, very good. And it doesn't get enough credit amongst the fan base for how good he's been, actually. Not
agreed, because he's for some reason. No, not for some reason. There are some reasons, but I think you've got to allow for changes all the time and reassess. Yeah. So I agree with you. He has been the scapegoat, but he has been a lot better.
Yeah,
since then.
So I don't think anyone could genuinely advocate Pelly coming in for him. But Kraus seems to, and I know he's played the last 2, but he seems to play a game, then doesn't play a game, then plays a game, then doesn't play a game. But Pelly hasn't played any games. It's a question for, I'm afraid, I hate to ask you to ask questions, but it's a question for you and your friends to ask Rob at the next press conference. Is there something up with Pelly? Is he not right? Or something like that. Because in these 7 games, apart from the fact that the defence seemingly don't know where they should be, the other common theme is the midfield gets overrun by a geezer right smack bang in front of our defence. Finn Azaz, Brendan Aronson. I can't even remember all of them. There have been so many of them, but you know what I mean? You know that position that I mean? And Marvellous has not played in all of these games, so why are we not even playing Pelly? Is Pelly Radakamandu the answer to finishing in the top half of the Championship? No, but he might be one of the components that gets this team in a better shape of mind.
No, I mean, it's fair enough to ask, isn't it? You to ask me even, because he hasn't been featuring. And, you know, I can't remember the last time he came on a pitch. And I think the thing is that the fans love the guy, don't they? And that is, maybe we're at the stage where they just need to find that love again. And he almost embodies that. And I think everybody knows that, you know, his first touch isn't great, and it's worse when he's not played for a while. So if he does get a go, he might pass to their players on the odd occasion and stuff. But
well, spoiler alert.
yeah, I take your point. Let's not repeat ourselves. But yeah, I think, you know, it's a fair enough you know, point to make that he's not getting a look in. What are the other just one of the other points I wanted to ask you about, because
when did these roles change?
No, because listen, I'm at risk of being called Mr. Devil's Advocate here, but I think they're important to say, like, just put my finger in the air and try and assess, you know, where we are and the situation. So I'm not. These are more questions, and obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you've got the comments. Put your answers in there. I'm not blaming anyone, or I'm playing both sides to try and gauge everyone's opinions. You're in the away stands, I'm not. So that's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when it comes to transfers, this is what I see on social media. It's not the best place to be judging anything. People are emotional on there, not reasonable. There's not enough characters to be really nuanced. Nobody's writing an essay about these scenarios to play both sides, and football's an emotive game. I get it. But when people talk about the transfer window, the perception I get sometimes is that they think all Luton have to do is identify who they want and go and get them. And that is not how transfers work. It's a lot more difficult than that. And sometimes I think that there's a lot of viewing of the transfer window. Again, if I'm wrong, put them in the comment. I'm not blaming you. Respectfully, of course. There's a lot of viewing of the transfer window as if it were a computer game. Like, you can just go, I want that guy because I do it in Championship Manager. I can get that guy and he comes over. Not how it happens. Because you can, even if you go to a team and say, we'd like to buy your midfielder, for instance, and they go, okay, well, we're going to put this much on him. Let's say Luton have got the money. They wanted Tom Cannon. For whatever reason, he didn't come to Luton. And instead he ended up at Stoke and he scored against us the other night. There's lots of different components to this, but I do sometimes pick up that some of the frustration of transfer winners that you're just not gone and got whoever you want because of the Premier League money, perhaps, and they don't take into account that that's all going on the stadium. Some actively don't like that. There's lots of different viewpoints, lots of different opinions on this, but when we get to January, my worry is that we know that we need sign-ins, particularly because of the injury problems. And Rob said they're actively looking and there could be some adjustments they can make. And if they don't happen, that it's all out, you know, toys all out the pram. But that is a possibility, isn't it?
Of course, and that's always a possibility, isn't it? I mean, there's two things to this. First and foremost, there's a communication issue. They didn't get Tom Cannon. We only found out last Monday for certain that they tried to get Tom Cannon. What's the problem with saying, look, we tried to get Tom Cannon, we couldn't get that deal over the line? yeah, you might get a little bit of backlash for a couple of hours from people that are cheesed off, but eventually people will have appreciated that you've tried to do it. We kind of gauged that we were trying to do it. You and I are a little bit, we're clued up within the media world that, we know what rumours are believable and what rumours aren't believable. But it wasn't officially out there. I don't see a problem with someone saying, even if it's only in a programme note, look, we had our targets, unfortunately we couldn't get them over the line. Because if you don't say that, you're offering up the possibility for people to think you didn't try at all. Now, I'm not sitting here for 1 second thinking they did not try and strengthen the squad even more than what we did in August, because it's just not the case. It's just not the case. But at the same time, and this is why I referenced Shandon Baptiste at the start of the transfer window, if Shandon Baptiste had signed on the 31st of August, I think people would have been okay with it because he's a damn good footballer and you take a chance at that point in the transfer window. But by him being your first signing of the transfer window, the perception that people are gauging, particularly if you then are unable to sign further quality players in the next 2 months of the transfer window, is that he was your number one target because you've got him first. And I don't think Luton fans are comfortable with injury-prone players being our first choice targets now. And I think they're right not to be comfortable. That's not to say that we shouldn't sign Shandon Baptiste. I'm not saying that one little bit. But for a club that had just been relegated from the Premier League because of an injury crisis, I think the fan base were well within their rights to expect robust players as the first port of call. And under no circumstances, and Rob even alluded to it, I think with the day that he released Shandon Baptiste to the world, he said something along the lines of, we've got to make sure we keep him fit. You can't do that to injury players. They're either built to be fit or they're not. Yeah? Mark McGuinness has got his critics. I've been one of them. I say when he's had a good game, I say when he's had a bad game. I have nothing personal against the guy. He's played every single game. He's a robust footballer. That's the kind of signings. Forget the fees, forget the quality, forget the return. They're the kind of signings that I think Luton fans would have expected to make, not a Shandon Baptiste that early in the transfer window. You're asking me my views, but you're also asking me the views of the vibes that I'm getting from people at away grounds. So the vibes that I'm getting from people from away grounds and trust members that get in contact with me an awful lot would be 2020 should not sacrifice anything that jeopardises Power Court. They're right to prioritise Power Court.
Agreed.
So if every bit of money that we have has to go to Power Court and it leaves nothing for transfers, then they're right to do that. And if we do end up in League One, we end up in League One. It's a risk worth taking because the future of the club will forever and a day be secure. I now have nieces who are just starting to support this football club and I want them to have a football club to support. And with Power Court, they'll definitely have one. So they're right to do that. I think they'd be justified in just coming out and saying that. I really don't. Obviously not during the transfer window. I don't expect them to come out and say, woo, we got no money because we're spending it on Power Court. On February the 1st, come out and say that. Look, Power Court's cost an awful lot more than what we thought it might have done or than what we budgeted for or whatever the situation is. And of course, this is hypothetical.
It probably will cost a lot more because everything's going up. I mean, my shopping bill is ridiculous.
And this is hypothetical. Maybe they could, rather than February the 1st, maybe on September the 1st, they could have said, look, Power Court's cost a little bit more. It's taken away some of our transfer budget. We tried to get a striker. You don't have to name the names, but we'd know it was Cannon, an attacking option, Kamara, and whoever else we missed out on. But unfortunately, we couldn't get them over the line. That's fine. But they didn't. It was silent. And again, if you've said it quite often in this podcast, if you offer up the chance for people to fill their gaps, they'll fill the gaps unintelligently to the negative rather than to the positive if you're not winning on the football pitch. And it's the other way around if you are winning on the football pitch.
I just think that that's the modern world now. Whether we like it or not, we've got no control over the way the discourse goes in any walk of life. And I think not just football.
But you can shout it down with a little bit of nuanced information though, can't you?
But not just football, but the online world at least. it does feel the world is a lot more conspiratorially minded, whether you like that or not. It is, and so I think more clarity does help to alleviate that.
You can quash conspiracy with facts, but if you're hiding the facts, and there's a reason why they're hiding them, whatever the reason is, then you can't really complain when the conspiracies are out there, because you've got the opportunity within your ranks to shut them down. Now you've chosen to not do that, and people have, like you say, filled in their own gaps. Going back to January, though, what would I like to see? Look, this squad's not going to be repaired in January. It's too lopsided to be repaired in January. But we can get some cover for the injuries. Now, this fella that you referenced, Christ, blah, 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 I'm with you, I've forgotten his surname. He's a centre-back. So that would tick a box. A 20-year-old centre-back, so a 20-year-old, you've got to assume he's got a bit of pace as well. Tick 2 boxes, that's good. Then, can we fill a couple of areas? The one thing that I'm kind of critical with, and I don't know if it's a transfer window, and I don't know if it's just a little bit of panicking or what it is we clearly recruited a certain style of player in August, i.e. a footballer who's good on the ball. Tom Krause, Liam Walsh, Shandon Baptiste. Forget the fact that a couple of them are injury prone. We're now playing a style where you don't have to be good on the ball. And there's only 3 months in between then and now. So something's changed. So whatever we recruit for in January has to be what we're going to do. Now, if we're going to be a possession-based side, then fine, sign possession-based footballers and put them in a formation that allows the possession-based players to thrive. That's fine. If we're going to be a long ball side with no pace, or, just 2 wing-backs as pacey players, then sign some cover in those areas so that we haven't got to play players out of position in that area. And again, that's fine, but don't sign possession-based players and then whack the ball long to Elijah, because you haven't got a lot of time to repair your squad anyway. But if you're not repairing it for the style that you're then going to adopt on a Saturday, you're not doing anyone any favours. You're just putting together a load of players and hoping that they can do what you want them to do, rather than recruiting for what you want to do. So I'd like us to recruit for what we want to do. Now, if we're hell-bent on playing this 3-5-2 formation, 5-3-2, whatever combination is, it's so mishmatched these days, you don't even know what it is other than that there's 3 centre-halves. If we're going to play that, recruit players who can play in that, and make sure you've got cover for the key players in that. And I think that's all people can ask for, because we haven't got that. We're playing a 3 centre-back formation, and currently we've got 2 centre-backs to play in it.
Yeah, and that's fair enough.
Sign a Premier League loan player, please.
Yeah, I mean,
you can do them in January, because the January is the month where you've got half of the Premier League can't get a game because they're out the Carabao Cup. They don't give a shit about the FA Cup, and there's only a few Premier League games left, so they're getting their youngsters out a lot more. Hence why we signed Cody Dramé 2 Januaries ago. They're a little bit more easy. They're not as easy to do in August, because you've had the Euros and your players aren't coming back, and your youngsters are involved in your squads, and you're not sure how long you're going to need them for. Not the case in January. You can get some Premier League loans, because they're what's killing us.
Yeah, well, certainly on Saturday, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I'm with you on the transfer stuff. I think that's a 2-window job to try and address all the issues. And obviously, we started off the season wanting to be a possession-based side, and it's transitioned to something that was more familiar in an attacking sense, at least. And considering what I've just said there, I don't think it's all going to be fixed in one transfer window. There has to be some sort of transition between the 2 styles, if you are going to do that. You're not going to go from one to the other straight away. That's shown that it didn't quite come off for whatever reason at the early part of the season to now. So if it was all with a view to getting back into the Premier League, and I think we can all agree that that's not going to happen this season. We're looking at the other end of the table for sure. So there's going to have to be, I think, a transition between the style that got Luton promoted to the style that they want to be, if they're ever in a position to go up to the Premier League again. So I think to fix that is a long-term job, which doesn't get fixed in January, which is why I just thought let's raise the transfer market scenario now, because obviously people are looking at it, and we've already got our first rumour, before Christmas. So, I think that's where we are with it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. They've never done great business. Sorry, great's the wrong term there. They've never done huge amounts of business in January. I don't see it changing, but I think there needs to be an acceptance that as much as we can do in January needs doing, because the injuries, they're still there. And as I said, they're not all bad luck injuries. If you sign an injury-prone player and he gets injured, that's on you, I'm afraid. Whether you like it or you don't, that's on you. And that's where we're at. We're pretty much done for this episode of the podcast, but Monday night, Luton could win 46 games of football this season. They can't, but they could have done. But there's only one victory that Luton needs this season, and it's on Monday night. It looks like, touch wood, it's merely a formality that everything just needs to be approved, and the detailed plans of Power Court get the sign-off, and we're all systems go. There were one or two minor objections, weren't there? But they don't seem to be carrying much in the way of online clout. So I'm assuming that they've been sorted out, or they're not enough to impact it or anything. The plans have been recommended for approval at the council meeting on Monday evening. And if we get them, it will be a hugely momentous day for our football club and for our town.
Yeah, it'd be huge. I mean, we've been on this train from the very beginning, haven't we? And it's been a long, long road. And some people don't think it will happen. It will.
There's a goalpost.
Yes,
it's got to happen.
The permission is there. They've got the permission to build this stuff. They've got the permission to build the house. This is what you put in the house, isn't it? Really, that's too simplistic, but there's other things as well.
But I mean, the real thing is they've got the permission to build. Now they're getting permission for what they're going to build, aren't they? That's basically what it is. They've put a permission in to build something, which they've got, and now they're having the full decorations of it all approved. So we're having the stadium approved, the music venue approved, and all of the other sort of surrounding things that we've all seen over the last 8 years. And if everything goes according to plan, and we've no reason to think that it won't go according to plan, then it's the biggest victory in the 2020 era, regardless of the fact that we've been a Premier League club, regardless of the fact that we won 3 promotions, regardless of the fact that we've won a Johnston Paint Trophy. You can put them all together and this still outstrips all of it, because our club will be financially, sustainably secure for the very, very, very long term. And whether we win on Friday, whether we lose on Friday, or whether we draw on Friday, and let's hope it is the former and we win on Friday and go on a winning run, none of it is as significant as getting a win on Monday night.
Absolutely. That is above everything. And we all get caught up in the results and the ebb and flow of where we are. Everyone, have we lost? What league are we in? It happens, and that's being a football fan. But this is being a fan of the future, basically. And it's difficult to look ahead, because nobody does. Nobody really plans that far ahead. No, not in football anyway. We don't think about it. But it is so significant for the town as well to have that stadium built. And particularly, it's been an awful month for the town in general. We've had the news about Vauxhall, devastating. We've had, to a lesser degree, but still, difficult for some people, shops in the town centre all pulling out, big ones.
WH Smith,
yeah. The post office is going, and it just feels like a period of decline. So to have this place that we've seen, and everybody loves the pictures, everybody loves the plans, and that is what's going to go there, but you just need this final say-so, and it's been recommended for approval. In the 2 massive ones in 2019, it's that long ago, everybody bar one person on that panel was well in favour of it, and it got through no problem. then that'd probably be the case again, I would imagine. I don't know what the makeup of this committee is, but if it's got that one guy, the only Tory guy who just didn't get it and didn't want it and wasn't happy, and he's going to be left behind in the past, because this is the future. And it is the most significant thing, the most important thing, and nobody wants to hear it right now because the results ain't going well. But in the fullness of time, you look back on it and go, right, we've got a club here that, you're talking about your nieces. My kids are young; they'll be able to go, and maybe their kids will be able to go. But not only just go, yeah, we all love the Kenilworth Road, we all love it, but they'll be able to go, and there'll be so much more around it to make you feel good about, not just I'm going to the match, but I'm going to the town, and I'm going to go have some dinner, I'm going to have a drink around here, and more stuff to do, because we need it. The council have just launched a task force investigating Luton's nightlife.
It won't take long, is it?
I mean, as somebody that is part of a group that puts on events at night in the castle, if you want to know, music. The town, other than those gigs, by the way, I walked through the town to get to that venue. It is dead. It is dead. It's dead from when I was younger. It was vibrant. You go on a Friday or Saturday, loads of things to do. It's dead. This is not going to be the answer, but it could be the starting point. And that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you say people don't want to hear it, and to a large extent, you're right. But actually, and I've really forgot. I was standing at the bar yesterday in the pub, and a Luton fan who lives up north, and I didn't get the guy's name, and I should have done. That's bad of me. I was too busy trying to get served as well as talking to the fella. He said to me, you're Kev from the Trust, aren't you? I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do you think the chances are of Power Court going ahead in it? And he was basically like, because we need Power Court. We need Power Court more than any football results that we need. This football results are short term, but for the club to be where we want it to be, we need Power Court. And, I was like, yeah, I'm confident from everything that we've heard. I've not heard any reason otherwise. But it did make me think that, football results are a short-term thing, and, Power Court is where it's at. And on Monday night, we're going to find out once and for all whether we take not just a step towards it happening, but an absolute monster-sized step towards it happening. And we just urge the council to do the right thing, don't we? And approve these plans. That's the recommendation. So get them approved and let's get building in 2025 and onwards.
Yeah, I mean, people have commented about the delays. These things take a long time anyway. We've had lots of things get in the way. We've had a redesign. You get to that stage, if it's recommended by the planning officer, they've done all the legal work on it and the planning work and the regulatory work on it to make sure that it all fits and it all works as proposed. And now you just got to put it to the councillors. Now, I don't want to preempt them, but given everything that's happened to Luton in the last month, the town of Luton, they'd be bonkers not to.
They would, yep. And then, like you say, the majority of them have approved it this far, so it would make a great deal of sense to stop now, would it? So, fingers crossed. On Monday night, we're all celebrating the biggest victory the Luton have had. Bigger than that victory at Wembley, and that's just how it is. The club is bigger than a few football results, as frustrated as we get with them. That's for sure. Like loads of you came up to me yesterday, either in the pub or, as I say, when I was on the concourse at half time. And I'll always stop and chat to anyone, absolutely. And sorry that we didn't get the rewards that we were looking for, but keep at it. It'll come. It will turn. As I hoped going into the Blackburn game, they couldn't keep winning, we couldn't keep losing. Well, that run's got to continue for another couple of weeks, but hopefully it arrests itself at Bristol City. Well done to David Lowe, who was the only one who picked Blackburn 2, Luton 0. Well done to Jimbo for getting a point. 3 points clear of me. I'll have to equalise the home game against Derby. And anyone who got Blackburn to win the game will get a point. Have to be honest, I got back really late last night. And I've been doing family stuff today, so I've not got the leaderboard updated. We'll have a full update of that after the Derby game. So yeah, apologies for that. Blame Blackburn. It's too far away.
And this, he's had a skinful.
If you watched what I watched, mate, you'd have a skinful as well. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, so we'll get that sorted out for the Derby one. But look, the most recent ones are still fairly relevant. You can add your own totals up from there anyway, can't you? So that's good. Do keep your comments coming in, particularly anything that we've discussed on this podcast, transfers in particular, anything to do with that. We do try and react to all of them. We've got a little bit more time this week because there's no midweek game. Hallelujah. And we will try and get back to as many of you as we can do. Thank you for watching or listening to this podcast, however it is that you've consumed it. We really do appreciate all of your support, and they're going to keep on coming thick and fast over the next couple of weeks as we go into a busy Christmas period. Thanks also to the Barber Club and the lower level in Luton for hosting our studio. Appreciate your support as always, guys. To Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Until next time, which will be a preview of what is suddenly a rather big night at the Kenny on Friday night. From James and myself, come on, you Hatters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.